Apex Legends is proving itself to be a rather unstoppable force in the industry because 4 years after launch, it has just had its peak concurrent players ever on Steam, which is pretty damn impressive for a game that truly shows it's been able to go the distance with a sustainable development model that basically has just meant constant content for a very long time, a user base that's generally happy but does have a laundry list of issues which we will talk about. Overall, though, it's a fascinating situation of a live service actually being done right by its community.
Yep, and it is currently third on the top games of Steam, and it's also available on consoles and also Origin, which is interesting because we have a couple of Apex players in the office. I would like to get into it, but haven't bothered yet because I'm playing World of Warcraft. But they were saying that they all still play on Origin from the initial days of its launch, and it's like they have a couple issues, but they still haven't bothered to swap. So you have to think, if that's, 510 peak, is that maybe closer to a mil total? Across consoles, across Origin, across Switch?
That is entirely believable.
Yep.
Yeah, that is
Big
utterly believable. So yeah, 3 years later, Season 4 has launched. 510,286 concurrent players on Steam. We, of course, would then have to extrapolate that out onto the other platforms. And what's fascinating here is, while there are definitely grumbles with the game, it's got a production schedule that has now become very consistent, allegedly is being done without crunching the team. And I suppose the hope is that they can sort of hold the banner for just doing it right, that actually working good by the game. And, you think about the benefits here. While there's definitely employees who won't want to work in the same project again and again and again for years, but overall, you've got to imagine that their ability to retain great staff to actually keep all this shit going, that's actually great and is probably helped by less crunch.
It's not even just about less crunch as well. It's like, this is a thing where this is something that I'm actually preparing a video at the minute for the Bellular gaming channel talking about MMOs and stuff. But there's this trend of what content is actually kind of, pointed for long-term development. What makes a live service actually work as a live service? Because you can go the route of just pump content all day long, keeping was it the Bruce Lee saying about he fears whoever's practiced the same kick 10,000 times, and that kind of works if you're going for super importance, but that doesn't seem to work for developers or players in the long term. You seem to need a little bit more variety, a little bit more kind of not content development by pure pipeline or pure production schedule, just by the numbers, but rather how can we meaningfully develop this game to be a little bit more interesting? How can we meaningfully make developers have fun? So they'll go, oh yeah, let's do something cool. And they all sit around and go, yeah, let's make this cool shit for the players to enjoy. And the players get it and it's a little bit different, a little bit new, a little bit enjoyable. So there's a whole kind of accidentally almost Apex are just kind of, Respawn the developers. I'd love to say EA, but I feel like kind of Respawn are leading EA by the hand when it comes to good things these days.
Well, yeah, basically.
So it's very much them, and they're doing basically everything right, it seems.
Yeah, they have massive success here. They're also developing multiple other games. Yeah. Vince Zampella is now going around other places in EA. A great example is DICE, trying to fix up how they're actually doing things. Per their recent earnings call, they've exceeded 2 billion in lifetime bookings, meaning it's one of the most successful live services in the industry. Again, everyone laughs in Genshin Impact, but still, that is incredible performance. And then it's turned out, and this is the core reason why they put the game in Switch, that Japan is actually the second biggest market for this game. And I suppose that's fascinating. But again, Japan's a massive country, isn't it? 180 million people?
Yeah, it's a massive country. It's
over double the size of the UK.
Yep, it's got a very huge growing PC gaming market. I think Apex is actually pushing quite a lot of that because you've got the transfer from Switch to PC, especially as people are getting into streaming and PC gaming culture and, emulating VTubers and streamers and stuff like that. There's that whole big thing of just, Apex is kind of exploding. And we talked about this a little bit before because that's an old quote from Ahmad saying it's the second largest market for Apex. Probably still the second largest because there's still so many Western players and stuff. And then obviously Apex Mobile out, and haven't really heard too much about that outside of it's out and probably doing quite well. Yeah. But then the thing we've got is some new information from back in March, which is Line Corporation, who handle basically Line is the de facto social media thing, kind of like the Japanese WhatsApp's probably a good way to call it. I don't know if WhatsApp's but WhatsApp's pretty big in the US, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the kind of the thing everyone uses to communicate. And they went over 15 to 24 respondents had it the 11th most talked about trend before December, and then the 5th a couple months later. So that is now bigger than Pokemon individually, bigger than Uma Musume, which is a really big gacha game. And, well, I don't know how well the media property is doing, but the gacha is huge. Boy Band, COVID, more than that. 0.1% less than Demon Slayer, which is basically one of the biggest anime properties of all time now, or getting up there. 2% below TikTok,
And a
and
third,
stuff like that.
a third of the war.
Yeah.
So in this age group, Apex has talked about like a third as much as the war. Like that's a lot of talk.
Yeah, for like, obviously you notice that's the only Western brand there
Yeah.
in that list. It's kind of crazy. It's crazy how much that's succeeded among, and it's just that thing of it does everything basically right.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember us talking about this a while ago. Anecdotal, when I was using Tinder in Tokyo, at least 1 to 2 in every 10 girls' profiles I saw made some reference to Apex.
Yep.
Now, this is hardly science,
Yeah.
but it's just kind of funny.
Yeah, it's interesting how much of a like cultural phenomenon it is there, and clearly not like, because you think of like Fortnite would be maybe the big game you think of in the West for like the cultural game everyone knows, but obviously Fortnite is clearly targeted towards, I guess I'll say kids and aspiring content creators who are aiming towards kids and stuff like that. I can't imagine a whole bunch of like, you imagine people who sit down and they're in their like late 20s or something, they're more likely to be COD bros or something, or they'd be more likely to play Apex or something like that, as opposed to Fortnite because of the aesthetics and stuff. Then you look into Apex, whatever it is about Apex is aesthetics. Especially, I think a lot of it is like the character work, but a lot of that is clearly very like widespread in Japan in terms of people like it. Although there is obviously the point that VTubers and streamers seem to be doing a lot of that kind of work for them because it's very, very kind of a super popular thing for them to play and get lots and lots and lots of super chats on YouTube doing so. Because I look at Playboard every now and again to see the kind of what's getting the most super chats, what's getting the most views and viewers, and it's all Apex.
Oh, yeah.
It's all Apex or like ASMR streams, that's it. Completely crazy. But all of that, you wouldn't believe that we are, apparently, according to some, in the middle of hashtag no Apex August, which I think is the most ironic call for a boycott that's possibly happened because it broke brand new records during this no Apex August. But that was the thing of basically like players who are actively playing the game are kind of trying to drum up a little bit of, hey, there's a lot of problems, we'd like to get these fixed. Can we just, actually say no Apex August, we'll get a day, we'll finally get them to listen to us. But whenever you're such a, I guess, a cultural juggernaut, that's not going to happen. Like we saw with the famous Modern Warfare 2 boycott. It's like that's just profoundly not going to happen.
Yeah. So why are we on strike? We're on strike. Now, let's not think about how 500,000 to 1 million people have crossed the picket line.
Nope.
And violated the strike. But there's a reason for no Apex August, right? So let's go over some of the complaints. Anti-cheat doesn't seem too effective. Yep, that's a humongous problem. Look at Call of Duty's war against that. I remember playing PUBG back in the day when it was the big hot new thing. And yeah, sometimes it'd just be some motherfucker with a bot, or with cheats, and you'd all be screwed. Server issues, bugs that take entire seasons to fix, bugs that are just recurring, right? Not enough, basically not enough changes, not enough updates. A legend meta that solidified early in development and that just is not really being fixed by the addition of new ones. Of course, skill-based matchmaking,
yes.
the usual there. Complaints about just aspects of the ranked play system, some monetization stuff too, which we'll be talking a little bit. As Connor has pointed out here, we'll be talking about that a little bit later.
Still has loot boxes, like
still does.
That's the thing. You have to overhaul your monetization system, and if it works, you're not going to want to do that.
Yep. And of course, the fun 1-2 punch of pro players thinking the developers care too much about non-high-end play, and then regular players thinking the developers care too much about the pros, and cross progression not coming fast enough after crossplay.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty big problem for especially for people who are playing on Switch and stuff like that. Because you'd love to have a wee play on Switch when you're out and about, or you're somewhere else, or you're even just in bed, and then sit at your PC for sweatier moments. And then the fact that they don't have cross progression there is like, come on. But yeah, it's a publisher problem, I imagine. But yeah.
Yes, overall, it's this sort of situation where there's been a constant content cadence, but not exactly some of the things that people will have wanted to see. So to them, it ends up feeling weird that like this content keeps on coming, but like where are the fixes? Why aren't these things not being addressed? That's one aspect. Now that said, And this is something that, because like me and Matt both played it for a decent bit after launch.
Yeah.
But I have not checked into the game in a while.
Me neither.
But what is kind of cool is the amount of experimentation, which is the sort of thing that, like, if I had the time, I'd be absolutely back to try all of this. Like with, the other gameplay modes, right? Like arena and control. Like, that's just really cool that they've thrown those things in. But they have done some other changes. They've overhauled the Battle Pass progression system to be more focused on long-term over the whole season. Which is, better than the sort of indentured daily labor.
That immediately sounds so much better to me than daily stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, even just thinking about the whole behavioral psychology part of video games, going, here's a long-term goal. You're like, hell yeah. I'm not going to be all dopamine up trying that. I'm going to actually try that. That's going to feel great.
Completely altering the ranked scoring to basically encourage smart movement, late game survival, and tactical plays rather than only just rewarding kills. So that's actually pretty damn neat.
That feels like a kind of, what's the term? I'm trying to think of the kind of like the long-term goal, like the moonshot, like the very super important thing that no one's able to nail before. Like the kind of the thing that if you can get this right across so many genres of, we've finally found a way to numerically represent your skill as opposed to, you got a load of kills. Because that thing of if you're going to need a number, especially in a game that's like got a whole ranked climbing meta and people running around putting, I mean, if people are talking about Apex and Tinder in Japan, they're probably putting the rank in their bio. So if people are doing that, you'll want to have it accurately represent what good gameplay looks like. So like having what I imagine is a very, very smart, very talented team at Respawn, figuring that out is like, that's a shit that everyone needs to like. Basically, can you find a way to do that and then make it adaptable for other games and do like 5 GDC talks on it, please? Because I think that's what we really badly need.
Yeah. Now next we've got, honestly, what I think the Halo Infinite team wishes they were able to say. So this is what the game director said back in 2020 about content cadence. Basically saying, we refuse to crunch the team, so we'll probably be slower at making content than if we worked 15 hours, but they're just not going to do those. It's the sort of thing, you can make the next season faster if you crunch, and maybe the season after that, but at some point you hit diminishing returns, and then you start to lose developers, you start to lose people in your team, you get a Ship of Theseus situation. I think that's how Battlefield 2042 situations arise, where there's been so much turnover in the team that the sorts of things the players expect to be done to a good level of quality don't get done to that level of quality. But anyway, in 2020, he said they've nearly doubled the team size since launch. So ultimately, it's like what, say, Halo Infinite wishes, that they could do, right? Where the team size doubles, they keep on getting more people, and they can just have a nice, steady content cadence that doesn't involve crunching people. So in a way, with Apex, like, not all is perfect, but you could say in a way they're living the dream.
It is full marathon pace. Full marathon pace. We're changing things up, and I think that's the thing that's super important, is that kind of, hey, we're just changing things, we're doing what's fun, we're listening to feedback mostly. Obviously, they're a little bit more. I imagine this is because they likely have a lot of engineers and stuff working on other projects and other games, getting like additions to the engine for Survivor, stuff like that kind of going, or for the other shooters. While they have like gameplay designers and stuff and content people working on this, so that's why they've got loads of cool content. But maybe some fundamental issues aren't quite solved, which is obviously kind of their bad. But I mean, it seems to be like, if you're going to make the tough choice of which road do you go down, do you fix all of these like fundamental buggy kind of problems that are annoying but not really killing the game, or are you going to keep updating it all the time? It seems like the one that most players actually want, even though you'll see people on like Reddit kind of decrying, but they'll always decry the path not taken.
Yes.
I think that's the thing where you can't really please everyone, and it seems that, I hate to say it, but the numbers are kind of speaking for themselves in a way that they clearly are. Just going, yep, we have learned how fast we can run and run forever and just keep doing it. Just so sick. So sick.
Yeah. A fun thing here. So they actually, this is to the stage where they were able to ship the most recent Battle Royale map ahead of schedule. Rodney here, who worked on it, said, I've worked on some brutal crunches, but I've never crunched an Apex. In fact, we came in early in Stormfront, or Stormpoint. Stormfront's different. That's from The Boys and also other places.
So I believe, yes.
So basically it ends up being a different situation to say the Call of Duty problem, where it's like, uh-oh, we're behind. Let's just throw all the developers. Toys for Bob? No more toys for you. Get in the mines, which is how things have kind of been in the Activision land. Now, there's more going on for Apex, though, because they've got the mobile game. So It was the number one iPhone game in 60 countries, got just shy of 5 million in revenue in its first week, which is good enough. Now, it's not the success of Fortnite or COD Mobile. Pointed out here that this dwarfs the 600k revenue that PUBG Mobile generated in the first week monetization was enabled. Obviously, we now know that PUBG Mobile's got humongous, but it is a lot less than the 14.8 million of COD Mobile during its launch week. So that's kind of interesting. But overall, it is doing well. And they're treating it pretty good too, because there's two unique legends in the mobile version, a team deathmatch mode that doesn't exist in the original game, skins, cosmetics, stuff like that are exclusive to the mobile game as well. So basically the point is they seem to have actually put effort into it. And when you look at the user ratings, they are also really high.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I like this every single time we talk about Apex or talk about Respawn, I just have this profound feeling that they're absolutely, we don't deserve them compared to like everyone else at EA, everyone else in Activision, everyone over at Ubisoft, basically everyone in like the AAA industry. Look at them go, well, man, we really, what do we do to deserve these guys? How did this happen? What miracle actually occurred that these devs are sitting here doing basically whatever they want and it's actually working for them instead of everything else we usually see, all the terrible stories we have to talk about. I just look like, man, they've just found success in doing what they actually want.
Yeah, and then when you go to actually catering for the players, like for the high-end stuff, so they do have their competitive, their whole competitive circuit and all of that. Most recent one, 290,000 viewers average, and a peak of 632,000. That's a lot of people. Like, really sure, it might not be peak LCS numbers or something, but that's a really, really good showing, right? So that's great. They're doing reworks to sort of help with the, with the top end play skill, so they can keep on going up. But also there are other ways to play the game. There's a Counter-Strike style 3 versus 3 that it is CS style. It has a weapon store and everything. Like, I see that, I'm like, oh shit, well, that would be fun. Yeah. And probably a good way for me to practice my gunplay in that game, because I was honestly a bit shit most of the time.
But this is where I'll even think about, like, talking about how they want, variety and stuff. That's even, because this is something that I've been thinking about a lot because of Final Fantasy 14 introducing the Island Sanctuary and having pretty varied content. If you want someone to play your game every day, you can't have the one thing that's really perfect. You can if you're something like StarCraft, right? But that's like such a hyper specialized niche thing. If you want a wider audience, you're going to have like a couple products that are really, really strong and really good. And that's a case where if you don't feel like playing a battle royale that day, you can go play the arena mode. And it's like, I imagine they have the numbers, or maybe even just the intuition from their own playstyle, just knowing, we know this is a good thing. Is this taken away from development time on our other modes? Yes. Will this be worth it? Because every time someone hovers over like the play button and goes, fuck, I'll do some arena today. Like, how much is that player now plays the game for an extra year? Whereas if they were just doing the BR, they quit.
Yeah.
Versus, you see that versus games that are just, here's one single game mode over and over again and kind of run afoul of that. Because even Fortnite's doing the same, where they had like zero build and they tried all that crazy stuff every time and again. And it just seems to be like, that's the way forward. The way forward is to actually think about the player, think about the experience they're having as they sit down to play their games. And that's the thing I think a lot of developers kind of accidentally miss, almost like they don't see the forest for the trees in a sense. Whenever they're making a product or like designing something from the ground up, like, oh, we'll do this one thing really right, and they don't kind of go, well, what about the human on the other side of the screen? They're the ones sitting down going, well, I don't really feel like ranked today. And that's why people talking about having like non-skill based matchmaking, because they would like a little experience of just, I would like to just stomp some people, which has a problem when because then you need people who want to be stomped, which is maybe outside of video games, maybe less so in, but that kind of case of just, you want to give people something to do. That's like, I'll do something different. I'm a happy person now. I can play more games, as opposed to, I'm getting frustrated. Fuck this. I'm going to go and lie in bed and not sleep for 6 hours.
Yeah, and there's also Control, which is like the more Battlefield sort of domination style thing. Alongside all of this, just between their maps, their modes, and all of that stuff, they're built on narrative stakes. This is actually an example overall, like a game that is doing transmedia narrative actually pretty damn well. Right? So they've got like the sort of comic-y visual novel stuff that unlocks over time. They do a There are obviously some inherent downsides to doing this, method of storytelling, but they do a good job of actually keeping those things in game, right? And also making it not be, not really be a required thing. But if you want that deeper engagement, it's going to be there. And also because you're playing the game, you're hearing the voice barks between characters and all of that stuff. Well, the big benefit there is you're slowly immersed in it, and that means that even if you never really thought about it, because you've been hearing these characters talk to each other for like 18 months. You're suddenly invested. You just look at Overwatch. That is the strength that they did not capitalize on as well as they could have.
Exactly. That was, and even they've actually reverse capitalized on that with Overwatch 2. Maybe they've fixed it since the first beta, but I remember a lot of people going through and going, why is Mercy talking like this? That's not her character. That's not the way any of us had envisioned her character or how she acts in any of like the comics or anything like that. This is not Mercy. It almost seems like they're doing that wrong. Whereas just before we started recording this, I was like kind of going through Apex stuff on Twitter, and that was maybe a mistake. But I was saying, because basically earlier Connor was showing me like voice clips, like you're saying, little barks between them, and it was like Fuse and Bloodhound clearly being very close. Either it's maybe you see it as flirting, maybe not, whatever. But then I go to Twitter and I see a load of like fan art of them being very close. And, just kind of all the kind of different, I guess, interactions between them and stuff, and going, oh yeah, people are clearly invested in this. People are clearly going, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I like that. I will absolutely, because you think about the art of making fan art, and it's like, yeah, that's someone sat down and went, I'm going to put in a reasonable amount of time into just drawing this thing for this thing that I like. And it's based off a couple little voice lines that have no real merit outside of just being there for the fun of it. That's kind of enjoyable. It's even like seeing I think there's some spoilers leaked, and seeing Connor and Connell downstairs talk about them, and seeing Connor actually like read the spoilers, but he kind of didn't really realize that he was actually actively spoiling. So he's like, fuck. And you could see that like, oh no, I would have really enjoyed that as a narrative bit. And I'm like, and in my head, as in the back, I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? It's a battle royale.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, hang on. They must be doing something very, very right in terms of, the whole experience. Which is very funny considering, I'm sure if you asked anyone at Activision, they would say Overwatch is still like the leader in that front, because so many of the characters are like super popular and well known. Then you look in Apex, and maybe they're not as well known, but they seem to have the character driven stuff done perfectly. And I would argue that that's probably quite a lot of the reason it's enjoyed in Japan as well, because it fits into that existing kind of framework for enjoying media really super well, which is kind of very, I don't want to say archetypal, but like very clean-cut character stuff. It's very, very cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
Essentially, that's it. Apex is a great blueprint for success. It shows things being done well, transmedia narrative being handled with care in a way that actually enhances the player experience, which is, of course, funny to us as, Warcraft people, where sometimes too much context ends up outside of the game, and it ends up being a confusing experience for players. So it's very impressive. They've managed to pull all of this off, basically, and there's no bloody wonder why, say, Zampella is over at DICE in some capacity, trying to help them along, why a lot of EA studios have kind of refactored how they do things to follow some of Respawn's development process. So yeah, they're honestly a pretty damn great role model. And between games like, I know Titanfall 1 and 2 didn't exactly catch on, but like they're both fantastic games. Apex is a fantastic game. Star Wars, Fallen Jedi, another fantastic game. Like everything that they do. I think the Medal of Honor VR thing wasn't particularly highly rated, but that's not really a major mainline release. I think the point is that everything everything Respawn have done has been near universally critically received. And that is an absolutely incredible feat. And certainly across the world, developers should look at how they do things, because they're clearly doing a lot right. And
they're even doing it under the umbrella of the studio killer.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like, I think everyone was worried, going, oh, Titanfall 2 didn't do so well. Oh no, that's Respawn dead. There's no way EA will let them live.
Oh, well, point is, does Zampella turn around and say, no, I'm acquiring you?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah,
so. It's like, no, Andrew, sorry, this is my business now. I have a funny feeling Andrew Wilson would win there legally, and maybe in a fight. He's looking a bit rough, but more the idea of, man, they're doing things right. They haven't been killed. Even the success story of Apex when it launched was like, fucking hell. That's just
so well executed.
Yeah, beautifully executed, and it's stuck.
Yeah, remember 1 or 2 months after the game where there was no content, I was saying Apex is dead.
Dead game!
Dead game.
Dead game.
Ain't happened. So that's it for today. Apex players, you're eating good. Everyone else in the industry, goddamn, we need to take a look and learn. And hopefully the crowd who are wanting those changes actually do get some of those changes, because it does seem like a bunch of those issues are pretty damn important.
Yep.
So that's that. See you next time.